Hey everybody, welcome back. Welcome back, welcome back. Um, Real quick, there was something I would like to address. Well, two things. One, I'm super tired today, so if I seem kind of meh, I promise it's not you. It's me. Um, Second, during lab time, I'm definitely here to try to help you, right? But there's two types of questions I often get, and I want to give you a little context for what they might sound like. One of them, how do you do this whole thing? That's a big question. Um, I'm going to challenge you to try to get specific about where you're stuck on a next step. This is a little bit of practice for you to try to figure out how to talk about these problems. But also, if the question is, I don't know any of this, we have to kind of narrow it down to something actually doable in the space. Because let's say I teach a 20 or 30-minute demo and it's the whole thing that's a struggle. I can't do a 20 or 30-minute demo individually, one-on-one. You can see how that wouldn't really compound well over time. But I don't want you to feel that I'm not here to help you either. So the challenge is like, what's the next step? How can I try to get you over that next hurdle? Additionally, these are recorded so that you can review them. However, I know that that sucks. Going back and watching something you've already lived through and then having to repeat it a few more times and then go back and hit rewind and pause, that is not comfortable. And I totally understand that. Um, but if those resources are still not good for you, I want to encourage you to utilize my office hours or see me about a time that I can actually give you one-on-one space, right? I just don't want you to feel that if I can't quite give you one-on-one space during our lab time when I'm here trying to be here for a lot of people, that it's personal. It's definitely not. I promise you it's not. Okay, so I just wanted to like remind y'all, you're getting stuck there. Ask for an extension if you need it. Make some time with me and I will help you one-on-one as much as I can. Okay. Okay. I just want to make sure you got that on a recording so that you can hold me to it. One. And two, how are we doing non-debatable? How are we doing? Yeah? Feeling pretty good? Cool. Totally. Totally. Unwrapping, unfolding, all that stuff. All right. Well, let's hop in and start. Let's talk a little bit more about unwrapping. Like see if we can figure out this puzzle. All right. Um, I think cute. Little dimmer, but not so dim that you'll fall into sleep. Right? All right, cool. It's tricky because like on a computer, when I'm working on a computer, I want it dark and I want it in a dungeon, but then I'm also cozy and I'm like sleeping. I'm a drink goblin. I got 4 drinks. I got water for hydration, something sweet because it's awesome, something to calm me down and something to perk me up. Yeah, that's me too. So I just don't want you to fall asleep. Ooh, ooh, ooh. I did notice that somebody left a drink in here yesterday. I don't know if it was from this class or another, but quick reminder, if you bring one in, please remove all evidence. Thanks. That's all. You can still bring them in, but I don't want to pick up like 5 drinks at the end of the day. Did I tell you I'm tired? Cool. Me too. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I was up until midnight, maybe, maybe not on TikTok. Um, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep. And when I can't sleep, I start to doom scroll. And then anyway. So that's why I was here like a little after 10 instead of 9, like usual. All right. Now, unwrapping. I am recording, right? Yeah, I am. Okay. Unwrapping. Unwrapping. To unwrap, UV unwrap. We're actually creating a tool for us to put materials on this thing later. So a lot of the decisions you make now kind of impact you later. And now is definitely the time to ask away if you're curious about why some decisions are made. I do my best to try to explain them as I go, but it's really hard to like keep the context up. But let's just start with a few more basics. When I say start, I guess that's continue. Let's really pick up where we left off. Panels, panel. Panels, panel. Yay, the editor. Oof. Okay. And here. Now I do this setup because a tool we're going to use in a few minutes here looks a lot like this. So I try to draw some parallels here. I'm going to make a quick cylinder and look at it up close. And you can see it generates some UVs for us already. We cannot expect these to remain for us usable. I mean, even in this state, it's technically not usable. Look at how it applies a checker pattern to it. It's very stretchy, isn't it? So what I'm really looking for here, because if we were to take this box on the right from 0 to 1, 0 to 1, right here, that is the entirety of a texture map that back when grandma was making games, we had to paint in Photoshop. So I needed to actually paint, which means if a pixel was being stretched, there was nothing I could do about it in that editor. And while there's more that we can do about it in current material editors like Substance Painter, it's still actually affecting it in this way. And that should be a square. Like if I should be able to paint a pixel, it should be a square and it should be pixel shaped. So it's really important for us to make sure that a few things are kind of factual. One, these are not overlapping in a way that I have trouble painting two distinct issues here. Like if I'm going to paint wood on a certain grain going one direction, it's going to impact the space on this guy as well, right here. All of these, they're going to impact both of those in the same way. Here and there. That little gray box is the same as that gray box. They're sharing the same. So this is what we want to make sure we're doing, that they're apart from each other. Second thing we want to do is make sure that our checkers look like checkers so that the things that we're painting are remaining faithful to the mesh itself, right? If I paint a smiley face, it should look like a smiley face. And then third, to remember that 0 to 1 is all the space that we have to operate here. Now, those are the final outcomes. There's a little bit more around, I think, professionalness by like not having too much negative space in your UV map because that's wasteful in memory. But I think your questions, and forgive me, and please correct me if I'm wrong, probably have more to do with the complexity of the mesh. Like, how do I unwrap something a little bit more complicated? Okay, so we kind of got, I mean, I think we got the hang of a cylinder, right? It makes sense that we would have a piece of fabric the shape of a circle on the top and on the bottom, and then a longer one that goes around and we just stitch it along the side, right? That makes some sense. Okay, how would we look at something like a cube? I mean, technically this follows all the rules. Technically, I think it does a pretty good job. Let's look at, if I were to put this on, you can see it. Okay, so then if I tumbled it this way, there's the one. And if I tumbled it this way, there's that part, right? What do I do though? If we have UVs that are wonky and all over the place, this happens, and you saw that when you opened it up? Do some of you look at this and go like, oh, that looks a little bad? But it's the same amount of work either way. Yeah. Why do? Oh, that's beautiful. You can do that. You can come in here and you can just say, you know what? No. You know what? No. I've removed the UVs. The geometry is fine. There's no UV information right now. But you'll notice that it me a checker pattern either, right? I can't apply anything, maybe a flat color. So how to fix that? Well, this is like, how do I say this? I wanna be repetitive for habits without being like redundant and boring. But these steps right here, they come back, right? They come back for haunt you. Create. We always start with creation. So we'll take this guy here. I'm gonna select all of them by double clicking them. You can also click and drag if you'd like to. We'll go to your UV toolkit, which, quick reminder, if you don't see it or it's hidden, it will be under tools. It'll say show UV toolkit. This button is a toggle. You can hide it or show it, right? So I've already got mine visible. Let me move my mug out of the way. And right here, create, we can start with some creation options. Okay. Now, I actually think you guys can play around with these a little bit if you'd like to. The automatic one here, though, there's a little bit of a problem with this guy. First off, it's kind of cool in that it does 3 separate projections like planar did, like we talked about last time, but it does it very flat. It can't determine where you'll want your stitches to happen, so you usually have a lot more follow-up work to do after this point. Well, why don't we just do that though? Okay, let me show you what happens when we don't control our uh, our UV borders, basically. 3D mesh seam material. I don't know, see if this works. Images, show me an error. Um, 3D material seam. There we go. There we go. That's a good one. That's a nasty one. So, I mean, idea here. Hopefully, can you guys see that? Where you've got a pattern of these like little rivets on this material ball, and how there's like an obvious offset. You know, where'd you go? Gimme, 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 gimme. Open. Yeah, you can see it a little bit better here. Right here, how they don't align. Right there, you see it right there too. Those are 4 different UV faces that are not stitched together, right? And this is where you could get this error. Now, there are some tools with more organic materials we can really kind of power through this sort of thing. So controlling your seams is going to go a long way to the professional presentation of what you're building, right? My typical philosophy around this is that I usually look at this like, let's say this is the front. This is the front right here. This is about how I intended to present it, a nice little 3/4 view top down kind of, so she looks good, right? I'll know that when I look at this, I mean, I'll probably want at least these guys stitched together in some way. So probably this guy or this guy, but for sure this one. So, you know, I'll need to make sure that I'm sort of organizing these to be seamless, right? Okay. Okay. Yeah, the ghost. Ghosts don't like me. See that? So I'm going to stitch these guys together really quick. I've created UVs to make some sense, but this is where our cut and sew kind of comes into place, right? Now, step 1 is create. The whole point of creating the UVs really is to give you something to work with. And in my mind, it's whatever makes the most cognitive sense. You look at it and you see, you know what you're looking at, right? The second, though, is to identify shells. This is the puzzle part. When you look at something kind of complicated, how do you want your shells like to work with each other, and how do you want them separate? How do you want them cut? So, I mean, with a cube, it's pretty straightforward, right? These ones were pretty straightforward. We can kind of decide, since we have 6 faces to deal with, how we want to lay them out. It's really very practical. Obviously, most things are not simple cubes though, right? So what do we do when things get a little bit more complex? How do we approach these? Well, first off, fix an n-gon. That's gross. How terrible is that? But I think what I also appreciate about this problem is that, well, I'm going to really quickly fix it. Notice what it does when it creates some UVs. You know, it's going to create a bunch of garbage for you later. So again, only reinforcing that whatever catastrophe you walk into is totally normal. Totally, totally normal. Okay, now how would you guys approach solving something like this? How would you approach beginning to like make a fabric pattern for it? Yeah.
No.
No, no.
My mind.
Mhm. Yeah.
UV shell.
Uh-huh.
And probably cut the code.
Yeah, that feels pretty. I like that. I would probably do something similar. Yeah. Cut a seam there. Totally. Okay. Let's start with this part right here. Actually, I think it's going to be easier if I do that. So don't know the difference between cutting it and a UV shell. They're related, actually. So I'm going to do a quick planar projection. Do we understand what happened when I did that? One more time. I'm going to just middle mouse click planar and it goes like that. Took a little picture of it. Yeah, we can. Oh, love these questions. All right. So real quick, what I did here was I created a shell, and these right here are the edges that I can either cut or sew. So that's the relationship. Okay. Now, what is a projection? I'm going to take this puppy again one more time, and I'm going to create UVs. And I'll do it I'll just remove these so that we're not confused. All right. When you create UVs, they have to be generated somehow. And this way, it's through a term called projection. You see, I have a projector right here and how it's kind of taking a camera to apply information to this. It's very similar in logic in how what we're going to do is I'm going to just left mouse click this right here. Whoop. It's as if a camera is on one axis looking right at the guy orthographically and saying and squishes him like that. That's what makes it planar, makes it one plane. So it's projecting an applied like mathematic parameter around it to fit right here. That's basically all that means. The different types of projections we do though, will apply it differently. Automatic does planar on all three axes. This is kind of cool, but look at all them scenes. Cool. You can pick which ones you want to sew if this is what you want to do. I start with planar for everybody because it's just one. It's easy to kind of digest of what's occurring here. And you can see it happening on the X, the Y, and the Z. This is X, Y, and Z, like a box projection. You can do a cylindrical projection. You can even see how it's applying it here, like how this is one side of the UVs and this is the other, trying to make information for you. And in my experience, doing those sort of cylindrical projections work best on cylinder-shaped stuff. So I don't typically use them unless we're doing something more cylindrical. Why didn't we do it for the barrel? Because I'm trying to show you how this whole thing works. I didn't want to jump the gun, basically. But ordinarily, if I was doing a barrel, I'd probably start with cylindrical. Did anybody give that a try when they were unwrapping their barrels? Yeah? Did it work for you in a way that you liked?
Yo.
That does look pretty good. Looks pretty good. If I were to get like professionally technical with you, I would say maybe make a decision so that some of these are not taking up the whole space and you can fill in more of your usable space. Yeah. But as far as the grade, that's excellent. That'll get you through. Nice job. Okay. All right. Is there anything else kind of remaining a little unclear? Maybe how to approach it, what buttons to push, anything like that?
How you have your displays.
Okay. Yeah. You bet. I'll show you some setup. And again, I'm not trying to be a jerky here. I'm just trying to show where you can also find this if I'm not in the room with you. I've got the UV controls and setup here, and I kind of walk you through how to set it up right here and a little bit of a breakdown of it. This is if this is how you like to learn. But since I'm here and we asked the question, what if we're looking like this and this is gone? Like this is kind of what we start with, right? Looking like that. All right. I like to switch to the side-by-side view. I do that by clicking the left side-by-side panel. I like my view on the left to be my perspective. So I'm going to hold down space bar, hold down right click, and then while I'm holding them down, just push up right here on my mouse and then release on perspective so that I get my perspective view. And then on the right, panels, panel, UV editor. That's how I get there. Now, to get that toolbox, one more time. Tools, show UV toolkit. I like these to be docked, so I will usually do like that. That's how I get that set up. Technically, you can do all of that without without like any of that shenanigans. You can just, go here maybe and then click UV editor and do that. I get really bothered though with these floating menus and how they behave in here. So I prefer not to mess with it that way, but you can. If you want it more direct and you're fine managing this is okay. They do the same thing. Cool. All right. Um, have any of you guys heard of what's it called? Victory bias? Victory bias? Survivor's bias? All right. So I want to say it was like maybe World War One. It was some early war where planes were used in war. Yeah? Yep. And they reinforced those areas. Yep. And it was because we were fortifying what we understood as being targets, but those were the planes that survived. The planes that did not survive got hit in different areas, right? Yeah.
There was in what we talked about that, but it had to do with health, where people noticed that there were a lot more head injuries after the heavy adoption of helmets, which led to the brief counter, the backlash of helmets got head injuries. And it's yes, because Jimmy Hilter is going up to the hospital because he took travel with head and survived.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, like where you think it's like negative feedback. Well, but because they survived, right? You just like kind of alter it. Well, the reason I bring this up is because, well, what does problems look like? What are actual errors that we see in UVs? Like we're talking about what it looks like in a good space, but sometimes it's really hard to find the mistakes that we make. So I'm going to bring up a cylinder really quick, hide my cone, and I'm going to very quickly, I think, embellish this mesh to look a little bit similar to some of the problems we have with barrels. You and you. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna win in. Okay. Hey, what did you do that for? Okay, you're being a jerk. I know what's happening, Maya. You just being a punk. Fine, whatever. Something kind of like that. Um, there we go. So these are the problems that actually kind of show up in UV unwrapping, especially with the barrel that I want to show you guys. Let's go to panels. Panel UV editor. Okay. Can't even see them. Can't even see them here. I'll start with a projection. Tools, UV toolkit. Let's do a planar projection so we can see it. I've seen some stuff work a little like this with UV unwraps. I'm going to just sort of create the shell. Oops, create the shell and then move them over. And this kind of looks like it's unwrapped, or maybe even we apply a kind of cylindrical perspective here. So it's technically cut on the side. But I've seen this happen all the time, where there's my band, it's unwrapped. But I want you to like take a closer look at this right here. That's the top part. It's not really fully unwrapped. And it looks like it is, right? And when we apply a checker pattern, it's actually kind of hard to tell that there's even an error there. We're even, I'd say maybe arguably a little lucky. If this was smaller, it might be harder to see. Yeah, there you go. Like that looks like it's good, right? But the problem is that if I were to paint right here on this shell right here, it would bleed. And also, it doesn't account for any of this space on top. So that's how important the next phase of this is, the unfold. Here, I'll go ahead and straighten it out again. Now you can kind of see that there's an even distribution of those faces that account for that overlap, right? That is a common error I see. And folks will have the question, what's wrong with it at a stage that they're not drawing a conclusion to this, usually around the material part. Like when we're starting to mask off pieces of it, like, well, how come this looks, it's like wood, but it's supposed to be metal and I can't because it's overlapping with a piece that's wood. Okay. All right. That's a boo-boo. Next boo-boo I've seen, common boo-boo. Let's just move that over here. We believe that this is unwrapped. We accidentally just not account for things that are flat on another side. So just give your guy a little tumble. Notice how the parts that are completely flat are trying their darndest to fit one row of checker pattern around a whole part of that, right? Yeah, I can't. Well, maybe if I, whoop, there it is. It's all hidden in there. So, really kind of taking a look at your mesh up close. If you're unsure, you'd like me to come review it, I'm happy to come take a look at your stuff before you submit anything moving forward. Okay. All right, I feel like I've reviewed a lot of unwrapping. Would you say we're good to move forward, or do we have any other questions? Yeah. Your screen?
My office. Have them.
Yeah, that's how to unwrap from the start. Create is step one. Now, that's another thing too. I think sometimes when we're looking at these steps, like, well, I already created them though. Sometimes you have to do them again. Sometimes you have to do it differently on a different part of it. So it's a spiral, not really linear. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yes. Uh-huh.
To like unwrap these two as well.
All of it. You got to unwrap all of it. There's no part of a mesh you don't unwrap. Ah, I like the stitch. Stitch and sew are actually very close. Let's take a look at this little guy here because I think that this is going to make the most sense. All right, so let's say I want to cut this guy in half, just like with scissors. I'm going to select that edge and hit cut. That will do that for me. Or you can select the faces and click create UV shell, and it kind of creates the same thing, right? The UV toolkit. Yep, tools, show and hide, right there. No. In your UV editor, go to tools, hide UV toolkit, or show UV toolkit. It should say show. If you're unsure about how to do the setup and the UV stuff, because I've already covered this in this recording, you can find it here under UV controls and setup, and I kind of walk you through how to find it all right here. Yeah, okay. So let's say that we wanted to stitch, sew these guys together. Notice how when I select one, it selects the other. That's because they are literally the same edge on the 3D mesh. It's just one edge. So I'm going to select both, well, one really, but both of them in theory here. And then I'll head down to my cut and sew, and I want to show you the difference between sew and stitch. So, whoop, makes some sense. Just kind of puts them together, averages them in the center between the two of them. And then my favorite, I'm going to do all of these just to make my point. My favorite, stitch together. Whoop. What it does here is it actually moves the whole piece over to match it. So it tends to like hold its form a little bit better if you need it to. I usually use stitch together when I'm using that piece myself. Okay. All right, I think we're starting to get to individual, I have boo-boos I need you to look at, and I love that, but we're gonna save that for lab time so I can keep going on this. Okay, next up, let's look at the next part of our assignment. I'm going to smash together the goals of the last one with this one because they are kind of related. And we're now going to material our barrel. We're going to make this thing look cool, right? I don't know, this is my favorite part. Or maybe, I don't know if it still is, but it definitely started off as my favorite part when I started learning how to do this. So let's go ahead and find our barrels. I'm going to find mine. Open scene. I'm in the wrong project because I teach two of these classes. Let me go to my project, set project, 216. There we go. Open. There she is. The barrel. The barrel. This is great. To me, if I were to have to, hypothetically, just hypothetically, oh dear, maybe not, actually. This guy looks a little rough. Let me push that down a little bit so there's some room. And I need to fix it. It happens. There we go. Yeah, I can see it. Okay. I just need to make sure that, like I did just now, that if I were to have to take this in Photoshop and I were required to paint in the wood grain here, I would be able to without problem. I mean, maybe outside of my ability to paint wood, right? So this is looking pretty good. And it's in 0 to 1 UV space. Now, I've said that a few times, and I think that that might be a little confusing for some folks. So just to be clear, U and V are just axes. They're just axes, but specifically they're referring to a 2D representation of a 3D object. That's all. The reason that we don't use X and Y here is because that's just kind of confusing because we're talking about XYZ in the 3D space. So they took the two letters prior to XYZ, UV, to do the same thing. That's all that it really means. It's just, it's X and Y, but contextual to what we're doing. That's all. So that's what I'm saying when I'm saying UVs. We're editing the 2D representation of our 3D objects and just making sure that there's no stretching, there's no overlapping, it exists in 0 to 1. And if you are professional, we're not wasting too much UV space here. I start to enforce that later as we go into more difficult stuff. Now, all right, so to prepare this for exports, we're going to do a few things. We are going to make sure that this is centered or on the world how you want it to be. A prop like this is pretty benign however you have it. But let's say that you had intended to place this on a ground and maybe it was going to have an animation or something to it. You might want to set it on the ground so that it actually refers to that. But maybe you were planning on shooting these out of a cannon and blowing them up with another gun, in which case I need them to tumble in the middle. We'll leave it alone, right? I'll leave it here. But if you ever want to center your pivot quickly, you can just click center pivot. And just to prove a point, let's say I have it offset, we'll just go just like that. We'll want to make sure we delete history. That's the button just to the right of the center pivot icon right here. Under poly modeling, we've got these three right here. Center pivot, delete history. Oh, a lot of stuff disappeared. Delete history, and freeze transforms. Now, what this does is that this sets everything kind of back to 0. I'll explain more later about why, but let's just get into the habit of doing it. And this will matter in the next assignment. Okay. Now let's go ahead and export this. Now, whenever you export anything out of a project, this might be a little confusing. We're basically saying I need this file type and information to be something a little bit more agnostic or usable in other software. When you just save an MB file, Substance Painter can't open that. Unreal can't open that. Only Maya can open that. For those of you that do some graphic design or illustration, it's the difference between a Photoshop file or an Illustrator file and a PNG or a JPEG. So it's the kind of equivalence here, but in 3D. So what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to make sure you have your object selected and it's green, right? We've got the object mode selection. Go to File, Export Selection. Make sure that we've dropped the file type because I think by default it says Maya ASCII or Maya binary to FBX export. You don't see it right away. You have to scroll. So go ahead and do that now. And please tell me if you don't see your option. I have to help you with something. That's you. Everybody? Yes?
We have the image, so should we delete?
It's okay if you have the image. So what we're going to do is we're just exporting the selection. So if you didn't select the image, you won't be exporting that too. All right. Good question. All right. Looks like everybody's good. Let's go ahead and call this. I'm going to call it SM. Why'd you do that? Static mesh, shorthand for static mesh. And someday when you guys are badasses putting this stuff in Unreal, that's the common nomenclature in Unreal forever. And it's been like that for like 10 years. I still don't remember. Static mesh underscore name your thing. I'm gonna name it barrel. Barrel. You can name it my barrel. You can name it this stupid freaking barrel that's ruined my life. You're fine with that. That's okay. That's okay. You can feel your feelings right now. Okay. So ordinarily, if I'm feeling real strong, I'd close out Maya. But I'm not gonna. Because sometimes we have to maybe redo an export. Sometimes we find a boo-boo in the editor that we bring it into. We got to make a pivot, and that's okay. So if that's you, go ahead and leave Maya open while we open Substance Painter. If you're working on a laptop, maybe close Maya. Yeah. Would it be pretty cool if we got dual monitors in here? Yeah. I mean, okay. Yes. Mm-hmm. FBX. Mm-hmm. Now, yeah. What's the difference between an FBX and an OBJ? Well, to understand that fully, we have to do a little bit of history, and that FBX was proprietary to Autodesk tools almost explicitly, which is why Blender had to have a plugin about it and get really punk rock and force it through. Well, it turns out that FBXs carry just a little bit more data than, say, a compressed OBJ. But that sometimes complicates it. So kind of the difference between a PNG having like a higher resolution where a JPEG will compress a lot for you, where they make like large pixels of one color to kind of save on memory. Very similar in an OBJ situation. So sometimes when you export an OBJ, you're going to lose possibly UV data if you're not careful with your export settings, or pivot data, it'll reset to 0, or smooth mesh information. So by default, we want to get in the habit of using FBXs. However, OBJs aren't illegal. It's just kind of like, here's a JPEG. It'll still work. Good question. Okay, Substance Painter, my favorite tool. This is super fun. If you like to paint, even if you're not really into 3D, like maybe you like to paint figurines or like to paint on a canvas or you like to draw a lot, you're probably gonna like this tool. It's my favorite. I'm gonna click close on this little home screen option, and before we bring our barrel in, I wanna show you something you can play with. Go to File, go to Open Sample, and there are a few things in here you can play with, but I think the most informative for you at this stage is going to be the Jade Toad. Jade Toad. We're going to open up the Jade Toad, and then you're going to have your mind blown. Look at that. So shiny. It's beautiful. Don't listen to her. You're gorgeous. Look at subsurface scattering. And if I wanted to, I can just like go in there and start painting. It could be like 216 sucks. I'm kidding. I love this class. But you could like immediately go in and start hand painting. Now, I don't know. I'm gonna ask you guys to play with this just for a little while. Go in there, kind of break it, play around with it. I've got Wacom tablets up here. I'll do a first round. Who wants one? And I'll just bring you one right now. Who wants one? There you go. Are we gonna need one? Yeah, you are. Who here hates them? But don't raise your hand yet because I'm giving stuff away. There you go. Yeah. Yeah, I'm bringing one. I'm bringing one. I'm bringing one. Ooh, go to File, Open Sample, find the Jade Toad. Anybody else want one right now? Yeah, all right, all right. You're gonna probably need one eventually. I'm not sure where you are on your stages of making your barrel. You're gonna need one today at some point. Okay.
Oh, sorry. Adobe Substance.
Oh, go ahead and log in with your school login. Yeah, it's pretty dope. Yeah. So there's some lighting engine that's happening in it that's like representing some lighting in here. Okay. Here is where I think we have a little bit of a miscommunication with industry, 3D art, and art. And that, and this like offends me personally, which is probably the only reason I'm bringing it up, is that the idea that you don't really need to be, I think, artistically practiced to make really good art. And I kind of want to push back on that just a little bit. You can make things look decent, but they will look exactly the same as everything else you make and as what everybody else does. That's sometimes not a problem, but we don't actually, these 3D spaces here, while are, we'll say, simulating reality, do differ from reality. In strong artistic spaces in 3D, we should, with good leadership, have a real strong understanding of the variance from realism and abstraction, creating usually a brand or a style of that work, which is why the stuff from The Last of Us is going to look real different than the stuff of the Call of Duty series, even though they're both kind of based in a very realistic format, or used to be. So, I know, sorry, I talk about games your mom used to play. Um, but, but, um, it's important for you to like be able to be distinct and control with this as you get better. So yeah, I'm probably gonna make you pull out your Wacom tablets and get dirty with it. You have to be able to paint. It's true. Sorry. Now that's you know everybody has a different philosophy about how far you can go. I think technical artists require a strong eye, not so much a strong artistic prowess, but there's sort of a sliding scale here. And I don't judge you on your artistic strength, but I'm gonna have you practice it. Okay. All right. So let's talk about how the stack kind of works. You know, why don't I give you just like like 10 minutes of just goofing around first? Give you a break from hearing my voice, hear a little bit of music, and play with this thing. Okay, yeah, let's do that. We'll move on at 11:30. It's been about 10 minutes of goofing around. How's it feel? Okay, yeah, yes. You're not sure how to move a model around. Love that question. It's the same. Alt, left and right, oh, right, middle, just like Maya. Well, that's okay. I didn't show you how, so you're just supposed to play around. That's fine. All right, how to change colors though. I think that's gonna be number one on our priorities here. Anybody else? In the assets. And the assets tab, right? Yeah. You're right. Absolutely right. It's kind of cool how a lot of stuff's like pre-built for you too, huh? Right. Yeah. Stick with me, kid, and I'll show you how to make those from scratch. Not today though. That's too much. Right? It's pretty fun, right? Okay, good. Oh, I'm so glad because my whole goal of this was to open up this new tool and make you excited about it, not terrify you with it. So, yeah, I mean, when I'm like, hey, you're gonna hand paint a barrel, go. That could be actually a little stressful. So I'm scaling back and letting you guys play around for a little bit first. Okay. Now that we're here, um, I'm gonna do something real quick. I'm gonna just like turn all this off right here so that we can just look at this. This is kind of the base of the barrel, or I'm sorry, the barrel, the jade toad. And first thing I'm going to do is in this viewport, show you the different settings of how you look at something. Now, right now, material is what is here. And material is the compounding of all variables that make this output. That's basically what that means. And so we get to see it's shiny, it's bumpy, it's color, all the stuff that makes it a material. The things that make wood wood versus the things that make metal metal, which will matter in a barrel. So if I look at the single channels, these, I don't have anything on here, but I could turn that on, are just the explicit like things that we've added to it that we've built when we look at single channels. This is what we would export. Now there's nothing here when I turn all these off, but when we turn them all on, you can start to see stuff showing up. This would be base color. This would be the height map, which is nothing applied. Roughness, metallic, normal. Normal's fun. Can't wait to tell you guys about that. Scattering, subsurface scattering. You don't have to worry about most of this. And then we have mesh maps. This is the stuff that's baked in here. Now, we're not going to do a bake on this for normal and bump information, not quite at this phase. We will though in the next assignment and then every assignment after that. But these here, the ones that I have here, normal, space normal, ID, which doesn't apply anything here, occlusion, ambient occlusion. These are things that are generated in Substance Painter that you use for more powerful tools later. So that's actually kind of an advanced way of thinking about it. You will use those tools on your next assignment, but this assignment is purely just painting and goofing around. So let's go ahead, click new. I'm not going to save what I did here, by the way. For template, out of habit for us, I'm going to scroll down to Unreal Engine starter assets. If you don't click that here, you're fine. It's fine. You didn't break anything. You can actually change this later. But where it says file, go navigate to your barrel, wherever you put it. Where did I put it? Desktop? Oh, shit. Where did I put it? File, export selection. I forgot where I put it. If that's you, if you're like, I forgot where it is. Oh, I put it in my scenes. I'm gonna put this in a folder that I won't forget next time. I'm gonna put it in my thing. Doop, doop, doop. Nope. There we go. I'm gonna put it there. All right. Documents 216. There she is. Wherever you put it, go ahead and bring it in. Where it says document resolution, this is the resolution at which that you're editing in, not necessarily what you're exporting. So it's totally fine here if you're working on a laptop that you reduce the resolution here. I'd say much less though than 2K. You start teetering around 1K or lower, it's gonna look real ugly and you're gonna be mad probably. But we're gonna leave it alone here in our class, and we're gonna leave DirectX here. This is just a type of format that normals are used. You don't have to worry about that. Don't worry about any of this other stuff. And then we're gonna click OK. I'm not saving my Jade Toad stuff because that was just goofing around. Just not gonna save that. And there's my barrel. There's my barrel. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Now, here's where you can really see how your UV work is going to pay off. If your UVs are stretchy here, you will struggle these things remaining true, right? All right. What should I cover first? What should I cover first? Let's cover the environment that we're in. Now, I'm not sure if yours looks exactly like mine. I think if I go to Window Views, it's a viewport, no. Windows, Reset UI, maybe? Yeah, Reset UI. This should probably be what you see, I think. Does it look like this? All right. The thing is about this tool is that all of these guys here are really editable. So like we can move this stuff around and you can create the space you really want it to be. So I'm going to cover the most important tabs for us right now. They're going to be the two viewports, the 3D and the 2D viewport. We don't need Substance 3D assets. First off, you probably don't have accounts with it, and they're not free. So we'll just close that out. Then you've got your assets tab. This is your library of all the stuff that's currently here. First time opening Substance Painter, everybody has about the same. You can make stuff in Substance Designer, you can make stuff in other tools, you can import them or download them from the internets, and you can save them to your library forever or by project if you want. But this is where you have like a whole bunch of assets that you can pull from. Then on my right over here, I have texture set list. Doesn't mean anything to you right now. You should only have one anyway. So we actually close that if you don't want to look at it. Texture set settings. Also, a little advanced. You will not need that right now. So I'm going to close that out. And really what you're going to need is layers. Anybody work in Photoshop? Yeah, they work the same way. Procreate works the same way. Illustrator, same. Yep. Layers, they work like layers. Totally straightforward. And then the maybe slightly more confusing but very important properties. Now, so properties will change based off of what you currently sort of have selected. By default, we have a paint layer on here. A paint layer works just like any paint application layer would, like in Procreate or Photoshop. I paint on it and it works great. But then we have something called a fill layer. I'm going to create one of those. That's the bucket right here. I'm going to just go whoop, fill layer. This changes the properties tab pretty dramatically. That's because I can't quite paint in here. In a paint layer, I have a lot of brush settings that will impact that. So what you have selected will inform what is in the properties tab. That's what that means. Okay, let's start with fill layers. Fill layers. I've got the fill layer here, and if I scroll down, which is not really very far in properties, I've got UV projection that's working as we understand it to. We don't need to worry about filtering, or even repeating just means it'll continue on even if you slide it offset. You can tile it. We're not really gonna mess with this too much though. However, color. How do I change the color? That was the question. Base color right here. There is a button you can pick which you can grab a map for. We're not going to do that. We're just going to click the color bar right there and pick a color. I want that color because I felt like it. That's how you can change the color. Okay. Now, there's a little stack where it says material here in the fill layer. This is what the current shader that's applied to our defaults here is capable of right now, unless we change some settings or change the shader itself. But height, roughness, metal, normal, we're not going to worry about normal, but I will show you the others. Okay, we're not going to worry about that one. Height, let's turn up height. Now, what I'm actually doing here is applying a value of how much bump we can apply to this in theory, just in theory. So if I add any value to it, it'll be a little bit higher, or if I reduce it, it'll be a little bit lower. But you don't see anything occurring. That's true. Because what it's actually doing is it's by contrast to the layer below it. So I'm going to do the same thing here, but I'm going to apply a mask to this. We're going to apply a black mask, right? Now, when you apply a black mask in Photoshop, do you know what we're doing? Does that sound familiar at all? Yeah, it's like everywhere there is 0 information, do not render this. And everywhere there is positive information or white, do render it. And it's kind of a grayscale slider in between. So what I just did is that I told it to, hey, mask the whole thing. How do we do that one more time? We can just click this little mask button right there. It looks like the same one that's in other Adobe tools. I'm just go whoop, add mask, black mask. Now that I'm in here though, I have turned on some paintable features. I can even sort of like slide this to like whatever grayscale I want in how I apply this. So right now I've got white, so it'll paint white. If I were to show you, I think the mask, you could see it here, and I'm just gonna like paint white right there. And I'm gonna go back to base color, or not base color, but material. Material, there it is. See what's happening? Now I'm gonna come back over here so that I can show you what height does. So now these two values are the same. This guy and this guy are both set to 0 on the height. But if I were to give it some more information, I can actually paint some bump on here, which means I can like over here and go whoop, whoop, whoop. That's kind of cool, right? All right. So that's how height works. All right, well, let me go ahead and clear this mask. Clear the mask. Clear mask, there we go. I'm sorry, I mean remove mask. That's what I meant. All right, I'll turn height off now. You are not required to use the height map. It's a little, I was gonna say bumpy. I'm sorry. That was the worst dad joke I'll make of the day. But it's a little bit more advanced in how you have to control it. So I'm not really requiring that of you right now. Let me make this color a little bit lighter too, so you can see like what's occurring on screen right there, right? Now we've got roughness. Roughness pops up. You notice how there's like a grayscale feature here? This is actually a kind of data that we're referring to called a float. And a float, when visualized, is grayscale. It's basically a 0 to 1 and can slide to values in between, meaning we can have 0.5 or 0.6. 50% of grayscale is typically gray, right? 0 is black and 100% is white. You can reference that however you want, 1 or 0, whatever. Now, roughness by default usually floats around 0.3 by default. If I were to scooch this down, it becomes less rough. Roughness value of 0 equals shiny. Roughness value of 100% equals not shiny. Pretty cool, right? What was that? Yeah. Yep. The way it's being calculated is a roughness value of 0. Okay. Next up. Metal. In physics, typically something is either metal or not. It's not usually an in-between of metal, but there are some materials that look like it has a type of metallic property, let's say like pearl. Technically, there's no metal in that, but give it a little bit of a bump and it kind of starts to feel pearly. Now, this is computer graphics though, so we can have in-between values for metal. And if something is 0% metal, we've got plastic. And if we've got very metal, it's metal. That's kind of how that works. I'd say typically you don't use a lot of in-between with metallics. So these maps are very high contrast. But sometimes maybe you got something pearly and that's the vibe you want, like for your nails or something. I don't know. Metal. No, metal. Okay, now those are like the 3 most important features, right? I won't require you to mess with height. You don't need to mess with normal at all. But these 3 you should be able to command by the end of this assignment. Okay, so that's how they kind of functionally work. When you're painting, you can actually adjust these things per stroke. Calm down, I'm not going to make you do that. Let's start by giving us like getting most of the way there on this barrel, right? And that means to apply roughly the correct values for wood and roughly the correct values for metal. So I'm going to start, I'm just like go back to my fill layer, I guess here, and I'm going to call this wood, right? So if I want this to be wood, I would like it to match my reference. And there's my reference. I'm going to just kind of put that over there for a second. Be kind of. And because I don't have my pure ref floating reference window, which I love, by the way, I'm just going to kind of do this for me. And I'm going to click a kind of medium value here. And look at that. I can color pick what I want. I think this is a good start. Usually, these are a little dark. So I'm going to lighten it just a little bit and then go from there. So I got to start with wood. Wood, this does have a little bit of shiny to it, so I'm going to keep a little bit of gloss there. And if I look up closely, I'd say the shiny goes away with grunge. So we'll play with that later. And there's no metal. All right, so I would say I'm most of the way there with the wood part right here. Let's make another fill layer. This one's going to be the metallic. I think gray is not bad. I'm going to actually color pick a metal a little closer to this. It's a little warmer than the gray that's here. And I'm going to turn on metallic and roughness. And I think metallic should be all the way, right? And roughness is maybe about the same. Maybe about the same. I mean, you can give it a little bit more shine if you want to mess with it, but about there. Yeah. Now, we're going to command the masking here to only show the metal where I want it to and hide it where I want it to, right? And if I'm looking at my barrel that I've made here, I'd really like only these bands to be metallic. Now, let's go ahead and apply a mask. I'm going to apply a black mask to this. Black, I like to apply it because it's very visually distinct. I know that it's working right away, right? So that's pretty much why I'm picking this one. I'll go black. And now what I'd like to do is I would like to reveal anywhere there's metal. And I can start painting that metal. That's pretty cool. I'm not going to make you do this by hand. Now I'd like to show you the polyfill tool. We're going to turn this on. And you'll notice that when I kind of wiggle in my viewport here, I can see my UVs now. I can see the wireframe. Now, set to white, which is true. I would like to also make sure that I've got this is the triangles, this is the quad tool, this is selected, because now I can start choosing my quads and just automatically fill. This one here is the mesh fill. It'll fill a whole piece. That becomes handy when you've got like lots of complex meshes, but we don't want that one. So I'm gonna make sure that I've got the poly selected, the polygon one. And I'm gonna just start clicking and dragging anywhere I see metal UVs here. Whee! Yay! And what happens though, Renee, if I accidentally kind of mess it up and it's like, oh man, I did that and I just don't want that? Well, we can switch to black and you can deselect. Well, it's not really deselecting, it's just using a black mask instead. Whatever's easier for you. White. Black. Don't forget the sound effects. This is very important. Okay. All right, guys. Why don't you go ahead and get your barrel mostly masked with metal and wood? Just the basics. Just the basics. Okay. Resume. Okay. How do we make stuff look like wood, right? Well, let's take a look at our reference. And there's a few things that I do when I'm looking at where to start. And that's kind of the tool as if you were going to like squint your eyes and see a little bit of blur. How would you approach this? Well, I would say that my reference has some darker grunge around the metal bars and lighter in the middle. So that's all I'm going to really worry about right now. And just like with like unwrapping or I'm sorry, yeah, with unwrapping or 3D modeling, you start with the large details and then go in, right? So I'm going to select my paintbrush right here and I'm going to move this down to be below my metal. And I'm going to start painting on here, but I'm going to use my tools, my paint. This is not the brush I want. For sure not the brush I want. Also, it's not really the color I want. When I typically do like deterioration of especially wood, I will usually select the color itself and then, well, actually it needs the actual color. So I got a base color. This is the color I need. So that's being informed by lighting. And then I'll go a little bit darker. But when you make something darker, you tend to lose resolution. So, or I'm sorry, saturation. So I'm also going to give it a little bit more saturation for the color I want. Is this perfect? Probably not, but it's doing some work for me and I like that. Next, I want a different brush. I want a different brush. If I go over to my assets and I click this little paintbrush icon right there, I got lots of different brushes to choose from. And I love these artistic ones because I need them to not be really like tight. I need them to be kind of soft and chunky. And on top of that, I like to like maybe drop my opacity on this down so that what I can do is I can build up on it and get a nice kind of soft, cool. I like that. Yeah, yeah. Now, when I use my hotkey 1, that's the brush, the paintbrush tool. 2 is eraser. Is the eraser. 3 is something we don't need. 4 is the polyfill. 5 is the smudge. Ooh, I love this. Okay, so I'm gonna add some stuff here. I'm gonna just give it a little like kind of build up here for my dinge and my grunge. Yeah, I'm gonna paint some grunge. This is fun. Guys, this is fun because I'm telling you it is. Just trust me, it is. Fun. But maybe I want this to kind of blend a little bit better. I'm gonna hit the number 5 and then I can actually kind of come in here and blend. But hold on. These hard round brushes for blending also don't really behave like I'd like them to. I'd like them to kind of push the paint around and like really mash it together. So I'm also going to pick the artistic brush for my smudge. And now I'm going to get like a nice kind of like a behavior of that brush. Back to 1. In here. Isn't that fun? Okay. Now, I think what I'm going to do for your assignment is I'm going to ask you to take it as far as you can before I see you on Tuesday, but it's not going to be due before Tuesday. I'll have it due the following Wednesday. So that way you and I can talk about some painting stuff that you got stuck on, right? But what I would do, if I were kind of articulate how I would approach this, I'd hope to be able to share a little bit more with you before I let you go today, but we only got 10 minutes left in class. Is that I first start with those larger color movements. I've got darker around here, lighter in the middle, before I get into the nitty-gritty stuff, before I get into the grain and the detail work, right? So take it as far as you can with what you know so far. This is already kind of coming along. It's got a little ways to go, but it's already starting to. And for your in-class exercise today, what I would like to do is have you share with me how far you got on your barrel. Just however far you are on it. No wrong answers. Week 2, Thursday, in-class exercise. That's today. Remove. Just want to make sure that everything is not locked, misbehaving. Due today at 12:30, available till 12:50. Should be good. Should be good there. Yeah. Take a little screening of how far you got on your barrel. It can be in either editor. It can be in Maya, it could be in Painter, could be the UVs, wherever you're currently being challenged. All right, and on that note, I'm going to go ahead and call out on attendance.